Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about making our own loose or non-combustible incense. Non-combustible incense means it has to be burnt on a base like charcoal because the incense won't self-ignite, it won't burn on its own. Loose incense is very simple to make once you understand a few of the dynamics behind it. So today we're going to be talking about how you can create your own loose incense. Now, the ingredients for loose incense would fall under the following categories. The first thing are the resins or the woods. Resins and woods would include things like frankincense, myrrh, palo santo wood, any type of wood actually. Here I have white willow bark. The balsams are excellent because they give off a really nice scent. Then we have the plant or the herbal materials. And here I have samples of peppermint from my garden and lavender. I'm a fanatic about lavender and I have a lot of varieties of lavender growing in my garden. And we have rose petals, jasmine. They're all different herbs that one can use. We also have the citrus, the fruits, and the spices. So in this category, I have here juniper berries, I have some orange rind, and I have some dried orange. And I'll explain the difference between them. We also have some cinnamon, ground cinnamon here. Now, one thing I think it's really important for people to understand is that most plant materials, when it burns, it stinks. It doesn't smell good. And that's a mistake a lot of people make when they're trying to create their own loose incense. Not too long ago, I had a friend who sent us a batch of her loose incense. And she was very proud of it, and we were so excited to receive this incense here. And when we opened it up and we set it to burn, it stunk. It didn't smell good, and we were coughing and gagging. Now, although it doesn't necessarily have to smell good for its purpose, it really should smell pleasant. If you want to create an incense for abundance or meditation, if it doesn't smell good, it really isn't going to create that atmosphere to generate that energy. And one thing that people don't understand a lot is that you need the elements to give it the nice scent. That's where the resins and the woods come in, because when they burn, they do give off a lovely scent. Also, we use oils. It's really important to add a little bit of oil in a loose incense. Preferably an essential oil, a pure oil. And the reason for that being is you can use a synthetic oil, you can use a magical oil, that's a synthetic, but you are burning and releasing those synthetics into the atmosphere, which you are breathing. So it wouldn't really be my first choice or suggested oil to use. Now, when you're creating a blend and you have your purpose in mind, what you want it for, you have to look at the ingredients and choose the ingredients. And that's not what this video is about today. But I am going to explain some things. Now, a grinder is something that you need to create your own loose incense. You can get a decent grinder very cheaply. This one cost me under $10. Please don't use a grinder that you would use for herbs, resins, plant material for food. Keep it very separate. The other important ingredient is your mortar and pestle, and it's also for grinding the herbs. Why do we have two different choices? Well, to try and grind a wood up by hand is nearly impossible. When I work with certain woods, I shave them or I put them in my grinder. But putting it in a mortar and pestle you can't use. You can get some powdered woods. This is sandalwood powder, so you can certainly use something like that. There are some wonderful woods. Cedar wood shavings is also a great option. Resins, which is one of my favorite ingredients for making incense, can be sticky and can be gummy. So a tip is to chill the resin before grinding it, which put it in the freezer for a little while. If it's a very sticky resin, you can freeze it overnight. But resins, I prefer mortar and pestle to grind a resin. If you grind it in a grinder, it is going to stick to the blades of your grinder and you'll have a hot mess, but the choice is yours. The plant materials, very easy to grind by hand, as are your spices. If you're using a large piece of cinnamon, obviously you really couldn't use it in the mortar and pestle. That's where the grinder would come in. But you can also, this is a cinnamon mill, so I can simply grind the cinnamon into my mortar and pestle. Citrus rinds are really great to add, but smell an orange rind and it smells fabulous. Grind it, it smells wonderful. Grate it, it smells beautiful. When you add it to incense, the only thing you're going to get is the smell of burnt citrus. It does not smell pleasant. I suggest to people to burn whatever materials you want on a piece of charcoal first to see how the material actually smells on its own. Peppermint from my garden, it smells beautiful. If this was smell-o-vision, you would say, wow, this is really great stuff. When you burn it on a piece of charcoal, it's horrid. It smells like burning plant. Lavender is one of the few plant materials or herbs that I would say burns nicely, doesn't smell like the lavender oil or like the actual plant, but it doesn't convey that burning sense. So I'm going to put a simple blend together just so that you will get an idea of how this works. Now, I choose to work with resins because resins are my favorite form of incense and they give off an incredible scent. This blend that I'm making right now is a blend that's going to be for a client for their business. So this, I'm creating an abundance blend. Now, I've chosen to work with frankincense on this, and there are many different forms of frankincense. You can get the little tiers, you can get the large pieces that you have to break up. The one thing when creating a blend is try to keep things in a uniform size. You can have big chunky incense or you can have very fine powdered incense. But the reason that it should be an even size is so that it burns evenly. When I was a chef, one of the first things I learned back in culinary school was cutting all our vegetables the same uniform size. And the reason is because it cooks uniformly. If you have big chunks of one plant or one resin, it's not going to burn at the same rate, so you're not going to get the same scent. Something is going to be more dominant than the other ingredients. If you want everything to be even and you want to create a synergetic blend of everything, keep it uniform sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some frankincense. And general rule of thumb for people is about a teaspoon of, oops, and I'm squirting all over the place, is about a teaspoon of each plant material or resin, so it's equal amounts. Some people like to do a 3-to-1 ratio. And again, it's personal preference and you can check it as you go. I like to start with my resins or my woods, and I'm starting right now with the frankincense, and I'm going to add a little bit of myrrh to it. And the reason I'm choosing these is besides their spiritual aspect and energy, they are very protective and they are also, they help manifest abundance and success. And for me personally, in my home, I just love the combination of frankincense and myrrh together. So I've mixed some frankincense and myrrh into this blend. So this is going to give me a nice scent. Now I'm going to add some of my plant materials. Now I've chosen peppermint because peppermint is an herb of attraction. So they want to attract clients into their shop, and so we're going to be throwing the peppermint in there. I've also chosen some lavender, and lavender is, it's also attraction, love energy, and it creates a peaceful environment, a pleasant environment that people want to go into. So again, and using a mortar and pestle is really simple. Once you get the hang of it, it should be no problem. I've chosen to put some rose petals and some jasmine. Again, because attraction energy, and what's more attraction than the scent of jasmine, which is really intoxicating. So I've put the jasmine and the rose in this blend. Then I'm going to add a little bit of juniper berries, and I'm going to talk to you about the citrus peel. You have to dry your citrus peel. I can throw some in right now, and it's wet. It really isn't going to do anything for this blend, and it may actually make things a little bit messy. So I really recommend, and also wet doesn't burn well. So I recommend letting your citrus peel dry, as I have done here. So I'm going to add some of the orange peel. Now, I could smell this, and I could smell the juniper berry, and I could smell the citrus, but when I actually burn this, it will smell nothing like what I'm smelling here, because I have the experience and I know what materials smell like burning. And again, learn, take the time. On a piece of charcoal, if you want to work with patchouli in a blend, burn that patchouli and see what it smells like as it burns. Because you may decide, if I want the scent of patchouli, I have to add some oil to it. So my final step now is I'm going to add some oil to this blend. And it's a fairly uniform size. I didn't go crazy and grind it up really small because I want people to see some of the pieces, but it's uniform enough that it will burn consistently and evenly. Now I'm going to add a little bit of orange oil. And I chose the orange because orange is happy. It makes people feel good. The citrus oils are oils of success. This is a beautiful, very pure citrus, very pure orange oil. You can tell by the color here. So I'm going to add about 2 drops of this oil. And generally, I would say 1 teaspoon of oil per teaspoon of herbs. And I'm going to mix this around and let it sit. When I think I like the way the scent is, I'm going to let it stay and dry. You really should let your loose incense dry a little bit before using it. So some of the basics to remember when making loose incense is plants smell like burnt plant material. So unless you add some essential oils, some resins, or some woods that actually give off a beautiful scent when they burn, all you're going to have is the smell of burnt material. Take that into consideration. Have a lot of fun playing around with this and create your own beautiful loose incense blends. Thank you. Blessings.